Good evening and welcome to the space. I am Pastor Sean Claxton, mom, sister, retiree. I am a professor. I am a friend. I am a mentor, and I welcome you to come into the space with us. This is a new venture for me, and I am super excited about what God is going to do in us spiritually, naturally, emotionally, and physically. So, the space is all things growth, change, and transformation. And that's what we are going to talk about tonight. Actually, we're going to speak on a place called peace. I have a couple of ladies I am going to invite in. I have known each one of them for 30 years plus. And when I called and I asked them if they would journey with me on this evening, they all said yes. One of them shared with me how she felt one evening, and what she said to me was, it is well with me, it is well with my soul, even when my circumstances are not. And when she spoke those words, something on the inside of me leaped, and it said a place called peace. Because what I realized is that many people don't live in that genre of peacefulness all the time. And when you've done the work and you know what it is, in spite of turmoil that may be going on around you, it's called peace. I thought, what an appropriate conversation to have. What is peace? How do we get peace? And how do we not just obtain it, but how do we get it and we maintain it in our lives? So I'm going to invite these ladies into the studio one by one and introduce them. This is Mrs. Marcy Gist. Marcy and I have known each other since we were 3.5, 4 years old, somewhere right around there. So we've known each other just about all of our lives. We're only 40-ish, somewhere right up in there. But we have known each other all of our lives. And Marcy is the one that shared that with me. She is a widow of 33 years. Her spouse passed away back a few years ago. She loves to sing. She has 5 grandchildren and she has 2 beautiful daughters. Pastor Tammy and I have known each other since we were about 6. And she lives in Ohio. We met in Ohio. Her and her husband now reside in Florida. They pastor Winning in Prayer TV Global, and they are a force to be reckoned with. And I am glad that they are on our platform. And Miss Dee Brown, her and I, we have known each other for a little bit over 30 years. And she is a self-relation coach. She's a second grade teacher. She believes in you being the very best version of yourself. And when you are the best version of yourself, you can help others be the very best version of themselves, and you can live in relationship with someone else. And she is the mother of 2 adult young men. So welcome, ladies, to the platform. I am glad that we are here this evening talking about a space called peace. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I am glad that we are here together. We are going to start I want to start with the word of prayer. I want to open us up so we can feel relaxed. And this is just a conversation we are having amongst sisters, amongst friends. So, Father, as we start chatting on this evening, we ask that you would give us the words to say and that you would bless the individuals, the ears that are listening, oh God. Someone needs to understand, how do you obtain peace? How do you live in peace? And how do you understand exactly what peace is? So, word our mouths that we will be able to share our day to day experiences and how we came from where we were to where we are to understand this area, this space, this conversation of peace. In your name, amen.
Amen.
And
Amen. So I am glad that we are all together. I'm going to start with Marcy. If you would just say hello, I'll hit Pastor Tam and then finish with Dee. If you'll say hello to the people, give them 1 or 2 words, and then we'll go from there.
oh, all right, great. Well, hello everyone. I'm so wonderful to be here. I'm honored that my dear friend Sean, as she said, we've known each other for a long time. So I'm just honored to be here, and this is my first podcast. So I think this is great. Um, yes, this place of peace is really, really important because there's so much going on in our world that is not so peaceful. It's very chaotic, very troublesome. So somebody's got to be calm. Someone has to be peaceful. Someone has to be in that place of peace. So I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Mhm. Pastor Tammy.
Hi everyone. I'm so glad to be here with these ladies, not all ladies, but it's just four of us. But I am so glad to be here with you all to share this space with my dear friend Pastor Sean. I am glad that she has stepped out and said yes. Said yes, yes, yes to God. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm ready to talk about this place called peace.
Good evening, everybody. I am also very excited to be here with these ladies. I appreciate Sean for thinking of me to bring me on to her first conversation. So I am looking forward to sharing. I'm looking forward to hearing what the other ladies have to share as well, and just putting some new pieces into my own piece pipe.
Thank you all. So I'm going to jump out there so we can get started with our first question. And it says, what is your view of peace and how do you define peace? What is your view of peace and how do you define peace? And I'm going to start with you, Denetra. If you hear me call her Denetra, I call her by her government name, but it says D on the screen, but I call her by that government name.
Well, how do I define peace? When I thought about this question, one thing about it, when you start talking about peace, you just start talking, and then you can go so far. Like, I have more to talk about peace than I'll probably be able to remember to talk about peace, because once you get started about peace, there's just so many pieces to it. But how do I define peace for myself? Knowing myself is the first place, and owning myself is how I define peace. um, no longer needing anybody's validation about what I'm doing in my life, being comfortable with my own relationship with God. That's a place of peace for me. Just not allowing anybody that's not good for me to be in my space for an extended period of time. Regardless of how it looks to other people, you have to know what's going on within your own self and within your own life. And when you can do that, then you can find a great deal of peace. You know, Peace will make you look different, walk different, dress different, because you're not looking for anybody's validation. It'll make you live somewhere different, work somewhere different, just do different things, because you're not looking for other people's validation before you go to do whatever it is you're going to do. So for me, that's the biggest way that I define peace, is just knowing myself and owning myself. Whether you think it's right or you think it's wrong, for me, it's my choice. And that's how I define my peace.
Thank you. Pastor Tam?
How do I define peace? I define peace as having boundaries. As Dee says, knowing who you are in right now. It takes time for people to mature. So as you're maturing, you're trying to figure out life. You're trying to figure out who's who. You're trying to figure out if this one's for me, if that one's for me. So boundaries is a big deal for me, because I did not have boundaries with certain people. And so then I allowed them to do and say and act. And it ended up being what I want to say, it guided my life. I didn't live my own life. I lived the way they wanted me to, as Dee says. So now I'm at the point where I have boundaries, and the peace that I have, I will let no one disturb that ever again, ever again.
Thank you. Mars?
I agree with both of the ladies. It does take time and maturity to get to that place where you're happy with yourself, you're peaceful with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's the peace of God. When you have peace with God and peace with yourself, you can go to sleep at night and just know that you did your very best, or you're happy with who you are in your own skin. Peace is not the absence of trouble and problems. It is really an
Right.
inside job. So it's when those problems and chaos and trouble come around, do you begin to realize, I need peace? And then you have to figure out how to get, and that takes time and maturity, because at first you're reacting to that trouble and chaos around you. So
Mhm.
I agree with the ladies here that say, it took time and maturity and growth and development to get to the place that we are now.
Right.
I want to speak on when Pastor Tammy said something. You brought the word maturity into the conversation.
Hmm.
And I would say that peace is on the other side of maturity. It's
Mm.
just on there. Somebody would have say, well, how do I get peace? You know, people are always trying to find steps to everything. So I would
Right.
say peace is on the other side of maturity, because what you have to do in order to get to a place of peace is grow up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have got to stop leaning and depending on everybody for everything and
Mm-hmm.
expecting everybody to speak into your life about whatever it is you're going to do. You have
Right.
to start taking accountability for what you do actually do. You know, we like to say we either put it on two people, we put it on God, or we put it on the devil. But at what point do you just say, this was my choice and I wanted to do this, and this wasn't about any outside entity other than this is what I wanted to do. So at
Mm-hmm.
some point you have to start being mature enough to take accountability for your own self. And you do that one day, you do it the next day, you do it again. And by the time you continue to do it, you'll be at a place of peace because you've grown up enough to understand what peace is about.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to say acknowledgement. We have to acknowledge where we are, and we're more mature now. And I was thinking about earlier when we were younger, and I thought about all the ripping and running that I did when I was younger. How there were at one time I had 3 kids in sports. I was married. I was busy in church. I was going to school, and I thought I was just all over the place doing stuff. And when you ask, sometimes my children now will ask me a question like, Mom, do you remember when we did such? And I'm like, nah. They're like, how do you not? Because I was so busy being busy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The times we're too busy. One, I believe the other night, Marcy said something about resting. Resting is a place I had to teach myself how to rest because I
Mm.
Yeah.
didn't know how to. And we fill our day, we let things and people and our children and families and circumstances run us ragged. And I remember we get up at 5, and before you know it, it's midnight, and you ran all day. But have we taught ourselves how to get still and quiet? And I
Right.
Mm.
was thinking because even silence has a sound to it, and most of us don't like to sit in those
Right.
places where
Mm-hmm.
we can hear our own self think. It's easier to scroll. It's easier to get to the mall,
Mm-hmm.
find a bunch of people, but we don't know how, and it disrupts us. And we run all, and we teach our children the same cycles. Just get busy, keep going, da da da, and we live in that. And you don't learn peace, and then you get to be 40 and 50 and 60, and you're like, wait a minute. But what if we would have learned that way back? If we
Mm.
would have known, our lives would
Yeah.
have been a whole lot easier. One
Right.
Yes.
thing I found out that started giving me peace was when I learned to say no. And
Mm.
Yes.
I didn't know to say no at a younger age. I
Right.
couldn't even say no because I had given so much of me in so many different places and to so many different things. I had to start off by saying, and I apologize. I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. I'm sorry
Mm-hmm.
that because I couldn't say, no, I'm not going to do that. Or I choose not to do that. And finally, one day I grew up and I was able to say, no, that's not good. And now, if I take on something, I can tell when my spirit is like, Sean, and there's times I've had to go back and say, I'm sorry, I can't do this because there's something that awakens in me that says that's not for us. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've learned to pray now to ask, should I put my hands to that or
Yeah.
should I not? Because if I don't pray about it and I take on something, I have to, I'm going to feel the repercussion because it may not agree with where my spirit is leading at that time. So
Right.
acknowledgement for me is
Yeah.
what I believe in.
And that's something I remember hearing Pastor Tammy mention was boundaries. And
Yes.
also Ms. Deej talking about not really needing other people's validation.
Right.
So
Right.
you do what's peaceful for you. I mean, it's between you and God in the end.
Right.
And so you have to be able to lay down and sleep with that decision that you made.
Yep.
And that's where you get the peace. You grow in it.
Absolutely.
So I had pulled up a scripture earlier, and I've heard this scripture all my life, and it's over in Psalms 34 and 14. And it was talking about David, and it was saying, "Seek peace, and then you got to pursue it." So that means
Mm-hmm.
you have to go after it. If
Ooh.
you want it, you got to go after it. Just like we go after degrees, and we go after homes, and we go after being debt free and having good relationships, you got to want peace like you want water.
Right.
The way I look at it,
Right.
and know the things that disrupt it. And
Right.
sometimes that means letting people go. I've walked in restaurants and been like, I don't, this, the atmosphere was off. And if I can't eat in peace, I can't be there. So
Mm.
I've left. I've gone different places and it doesn't feel peaceful. And that's because why? I internally, my body knows what it feels like. This is a place that I live in, I believe in, I fight for it. I'm like everybody else. Don't mess with my peace. You can mess with a whole bunch of stuff, but if you're going to bring me chaos, we can't do that. And we've had to cut things off only so we could reside in that place of peace. I don't want a little bit of it. I want to reside in it. It's my habitat. I
Right.
have to have it. So that's how I
Absolutely.
feel about it. I have to have it.
I do want to
Peace.
say this,
Mm.
most people, a lot of people live in chaos. They don't know how to live anything else but
Right.
that.
Mhm.
That's all they've ever known. That's all they've ever seen. So when you go to talking about getting quiet and getting still, it seems foreign to them. It
Absolutely.
seems like, does that really happen? You really are like that. My husband used to tell me, he was like, you could be seeing a fire burning on the left hand side of you, and you're sitting quietly and you are just, taking care of everything. And he says to me, don't you see this fire burning over here? Of course I do. But what am I to do about it? What needs to be happening is what's happening. I'll take care of it, but I'm taking care of this right now. And then let this fire be over here. And if I can get to it, I will get to it. But it used to bother him because he was like, you're just so nonchalant. I'm like, no, I'm not really nonchalant. It's just that I don't like a lot of chaos anyway. Even as a child, I never liked it. So me getting in the habit of, okay, well, I'm going to take care of what I can take care of, and I have to let everything else take care of itself. So and to say people that like to live in chaos, there's some people that like to live in chaos. There's some people that don't know that they are in chaos because that's all they've ever known.
Absolutely.
So if you are that person that is not sure that peace can happen for you, God is the one that you need to go to and ask for that peace, because it can happen for you. It can happen for you.
You have to be like a warrior when it comes to seeking peace. You know, once you ask for the peace, you got to be willing to fight for the peace, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to just come and knock on the door and reside.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to know you want it there, because if anybody comes after it, you got to be like one of those animals when you mess with their cubs, or a bird when you mess with his nest. You gotta be ready to attack the
Mm-hmm.
situation that's trying to take the peace from you, because
Absolutely.
you got to go after it. It's hard to get, but once you get it, you got to feel like, I will do anything to stay in this, because
Absolutely.
this is working for me. This feels good. This feels right for me. And you
Yes.
won't be so easy to let anybody or anything or circumstances come and just take it away from you. So you got to be like a warrior to go after peace.
Right.
I know it starts with the peace with God, and then the peace of God residing on the
Mm-hmm.
inside of you. And as we
Mm-hmm.
had talked earlier about levels of peace, so it's not that it's just there, but you
Absolutely.
grow and you grow into different levels of peace.
Right.
Then we realize that we have the Prince of Peace living on the inside of us. It's valuing that peace and then protecting that peace.
Absolutely.
So those are really big, important things when you realize you can have that disposition of peace, no matter what's going on
Mm-hmm.
around you. Like my sister said about a fire next to you, and you can still have that peace even though it's burning. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you have a peace knowing what you're supposed to be doing
Mm-hmm.
about it,
Yeah.
or next to it, or don't do anything at all.
At all.
Yes, you're right.
Exactly.
There are some people who are used to having all the drama,
Mm-hmm.
and they like drama, and they're
Mm-hmm.
addicted to drama. So they
Right.
try to bring it around you,
Mm-hmm.
and you
My
have
peace
to have
on the
enough
other
peace.
side of maturity. Yep. Because
Yes,
just
yes.
because yeah.
I
You
like.
have you have to
You
know
gotta
when
be bold. You need
that
to be
happens.
bold enough to tell when those people are around you. Hey, listen, not today. If you're coming in my space, this is what's going to be happening right now. You have to be honest. When you're trying to keep your own peace, you have to be honest with the person, and it could be a relative, it could be, someone you work with, and whatever. You just need to be honest and say, hey, not today. We're not doing this today. If you're going to come over here, if we're going to have a phone call, if we're going to talk or whatever, let's talk and let's be honest in this time, but no drama. Nothing. Don't bring anything to the table that's messy. Don't bring anything to the table that I got to get rid of when I get done talking to you. So you have to be honest when you are trying to keep your peace. You have to be very honest.
It's that word of intentionality. You have to be intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And as young, I was thinking about what could young parents do. Dee teaches second grade. Last year, I was subbing, and I could tell these children don't know how to sit. They had to always be doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought back to when my mother raised us. We had to have quiet time of just sitting there and doing nothing. You couldn't have balls and books. You had to know how to sit down for a few minutes and be quiet. And I
Mm-hmm.
think even in my life now, I understand that because too much noise, I'm like, wait a minute. And I was like, oh, Sean, that's normal. Because sometimes I can get so used to just quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I hear too much noise. I'm like, wait a minute, because I'm used to that space of quietness. And so it's so healthy, even as a young mom, you have to teach yourself and your children. Um, Even coming home, you don't have to come home to chaos and the kids running all over the house and
Right.
you doing dinner. You can begin to prepare some of that stuff on the weekend or early in the mornings to make coming home easy, to
Mm-hmm.
where we're coming in into a quiet and peaceful environment. And there can still be noise going on and it can be peaceful, but it shouldn't be you don't get quiet until you lay down at 11 o'clock at night. Because you don't have, a moment with your own self. So, question for each of you, and I'll start with Pastor Tammy. What does peace look like for you?
Oh, what does it look like for me?
What does it look like?
Peace. Okay, so I'm gonna use an analogy. Peace looks like me to me like chocolate cake. So when I have chocolate cake, I am like in heaven. All right. But it has to be soft and moist on the inside. Now I don't want no cornbread cake with chocolate icing on it. But peace is like a piece of cake, a chocolate piece of cake to me. It is soothing for me. And again, it could be, like I said, a fire burning and it's stuff going on. And I am sitting and I'm going to enjoy my chocolate cake. And when I get to that fire, I will get to it. I'm going to take care of this. And that's what peace looks like to me.
Okay, thank you. Marcy,
That's okay.
put some nuts on it for me. Chocolate cake.
Oh, I'll do that too. Put some caramel on it, something.
Yes, peace for me is a quietness in my soul.
Mm,
Um, as it is, because you can have chaos going on in your head. At least I do. And I even have to just calm my mind down from thinking so much. Sometimes it's as we recognize where the disturbance of our peace is, sometimes it's on the outside. Sometimes it means moving away from the noise and the chatter and the chaos and the gossip, and get to a quiet place. Um, it's more than just silence. It is that silencing of those thoughts, sometimes negative thoughts. It is a place of solitude for me, and I like that place, and
yeah.
I value it, and so I protect it.
What does peace look like for me? Well, I think it can feel different in different circumstances and different situations. One thing that I like to do, and it's very peaceful for me, is almost every morning I get up and I put the teapot on, and
Mm,
I don't have a coffee maker. I have a coffee press. I like the production of things, the rituals of things.
mm,
That's why I like to bake bread. I like to bake and things like that. And I go the long way around to do things. It can't be too complicated, but I like the process of things. And so I stopped using a coffee maker for myself years ago. And I go through the ritual of making my coffee almost every morning, especially, unless I'm having tea or something else. But if it's coffee, I go through that whole process. But I turn my teapot on because my mother turned her teapot on every morning.
Mm.
And that became peace for me. And it
Mhm.
feels like I'm grounded. I'm starting my day in a very grounded way. Um, Peace, I seek peace. I go after peace. I need to feel peaceful in my environment. I need to feel peaceful with the people I'm around. And every situation and circumstances don't have to always be exactly what I want, but I still have to be able to feel like I'm connected and I'm aligned and I'm going in the right space. And I can feel it in my spirit, the peacefulness. You can see that whirlwind around your head sometimes, but I still got to feel that peace within my spirit because that's what keeps me grounded. And so that's how peace feels to me.
You
Mhm.
said something that was very
Yeah.
important, and what I heard, Dee, was um, for me, it triggered something when you said time, or I was thinking peace for me is being able to take my time to
Mm.
slow down.
Slow down.
As Sean was saying, we were used as young mothers used to running around, being everywhere, and
Yes.
doing a lot of good things, but you don't get to have that peaceful time for yourself.
Yeah.
And peace, I understand it now, is to just being able to slow down and think.
Yeah.
And
It's being present.
yes,
It's
yes,
being present because
Yeah.
oftentimes we're not present in the moment.
mm,
Right.
We're on to the next thing. We're trying to
Mhm.
figure something else out while we're here. We're in California doing something, or we're picking up the kids and doing something, or and we miss the opportunity of now.
mm,
And
mm,
so, which is important. And you
It
learn
is.
as you look, as you learn, we learn as we go. And I'm glad that we have it now. But I believe when you seek it, you can begin to operate differently.
mm,
Right. I was going to say
You
something
begin
like
to
that.
operate much
mm,
different. Go ahead,
Mhm.
Pastor Tammy.
No, I was just agreeing with you. I think that when we are peaceful in our lives, um, we move differently, we act differently, and we react differently.
mm,
Absolutely.
So where we would be
Absolutely.
all flustered before, it's like, okay, now I know where I am. I know who I am. Now I know whose I am. So
mm,
now I'm going to stay and make this decision right now. And sometimes, you know what? I'm not going to make that decision right now. I'll get back with you.
Right.
I'll let
mm,
you know. Those kind of things, because if you too rash of a decision, you may hurt, you may maim, you may discourage. So when you are maturing and you are in peace and your peace within yourself, when there is time to make decisions, you can make them, and they're rational decisions. They're decisions that you can say, "Oh, I'm satisfied with that," and you're not going back and forth trying to figure out if it's the right thing or not. And you're not doing it again, as Dee says, again, to please other people. You're
mm.
doing it to please God first, and then your space and yourself.
Absolutely. Somebody else?
I want to just real quick, when you said you know yourself now, I don't know how you said it a minute ago. It escapes me, but it made me think about how um, years ago I stopped working, like, you know, semi-retired, I guess you would call it. I took a
Mhm.
break from the rat
Mhm.
race.
Mhm.
And so just recently, 2 years ago, I got back in the game, as they say. And so I was real nervous about going back into the world of work, because that's a lot of crazy that I had not been around. And I was able to understand peace during those years. All of this healing and all of this stuff is where I got all of that from,
Mm,
because I had time, to
mm,
heal and talk to God and all kinds of things. And so, but what hit me one day was, hey, you are not the same person that left.
Mhm.
You are mature. You are fully grown. Know who you are, woman. Going back out there amongst the wolves. The
Mhm.
game will not be the same for you,
Right.
because I know now, if you try to talk to me or do me like you used to do, I already know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get my hat, as they used to say, and I'm out.
Mhm.
So uh,
mm,
I
Yes.
I had to tell myself,
Right.
this is all different for you. You don't have to be afraid to go back. You can go back and walk in peace,
mm,
stay in the same peace, because
mhm,
now I'm not afraid to open my mouth. Now I don't care what you say about whatever. I
Right.
don't need your validation if I know I'm doing my job right. There's so many
Right.
things that are different when you have peace, and when you grow up, you can do almost anything you want to. because you're at a different level, and you have to remember that about yourself.
Well, that's good, Dee. I like that. What came to mind when you were talking was that you're not so threatened anymore.
No.
Right.
You're not threatened by other people's opinions and what they have to say about you, or if somebody decide they're going to take something from you. They can't take anything
They can't.
from
They
Right.
can't anymore.
Right.
They cannot.
That goes back to being intentional, and it also is a place of healing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, when you've done the work to
Mhm.
find out. And in doing the work, you have to see what part we played in it.
Correct.
Because sometimes we look at other people, and sometimes we were the corporate. We took on things, you know, it was our fault, along with other things. But when you really see what piece did I play in that?
Mhm.
How did that? Why did I react that way?
Yeah,
And then you begin to change, and it takes work.
it does.
I agree. Whoever said, I believe it was Marcy that said, it's levels to it, and it takes time.
Absolutely.
It
And you can
does.
want peace today, and the peace that we have today, we didn't have it. It's better today than it was 2 years ago, even
That's
this month, at the beginning of the year, I'll say. Because
Yes.
why? We begin to learn about ourselves even more. Things that I don't think I need that. One thing I love about it, I am learning when things around me become chaotic, I can ask myself, what can I let go of?
Mm.
You know, instead of trying to eat the whole pie, what is not important to do right now? We can sit down and take away or decipher some of the things. And most of the time we tried to fix everything and we didn't need to. And so I believe that's a part that we've learned as we've matured, as we've gotten older. What does my hands have to touch? You know, there are even times I have to talk to my brain and say, hey, we can't do anything about that. So I need you to get quiet. I don't need you to replay it because there's nothing I can do about it right now. And so
Yes.
we can take control of it and shut some of the noise down because it's disrupting where we are and where we need to be. So that is very important.
Yes.
Very important. My father, I wrote down, my dad was not a man that would say, he would tell us to be quiet, but he would tell us when we were growing up, when he got tired of hearing us, he would say, peace, be still. I need peace, and then I want you to get still too, all at one time. I need it to be, and so somehow I believe that since words have power, we can speak those words to our own self that we need peace and we need stillness and calmness. Even I think about our adult children sometimes, how they can bum rush us, and they'll be like, "This is going on," and da da da. And as parents, if we're not careful, we'll jump on the bandwagon of trying to help them fix the situation. And I'm learning. I said, okay, well, you tell me what you're going to do about it. Because I have to take a back seat to realize they have to grow up too. I can give
Yes.
you some tips and some tools, but as mom, I can't always jump in and try to fix it because a lot of times that's what we want to do is jump in and fix it because we don't want them to hurt. We don't want them to go through things, but
Right.
we have to, instill in them the importance of seeking God for direction and making sure that you understand, is that the place that you're supposed to be? And sometimes we even have to ask ourselves, is that my task? Is that my battle? Because all the battles I'm not supposed to fight. Some of them are not mine.
And know when to take your hand off of it. When
Yes.
it maybe
Right.
started out being a battle, but know when to turn it over to them and let it become
Yes.
theirs.
Yes.
And those are those boundaries that you were talking about, Pastor Tammy.
Mhm.
Boundaries that we have even with our own children.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
but God says to be still and know that I am God. So He wants us to be still at times as well.
Mhm. I was
When
going to
you
say.
talk about, go ahead, Pastor Tammy.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, when you talk about boundaries, one of the things I often say, especially in my coaching, I tell my clients, you don't set boundaries for yourself. You set the boundary for other people. You
For
set the
other
boundaries
people.
for yourself so
Mhm.
that you don't have to end up putting those people out of your life.
Mhm.
Because when you don't set boundaries, people go too far,
Mhm.
and then you're at the top. You're at the top, and then you got to put them out of your life or
Mhm.
have distance from them or whatever you end up doing. You can't even know them anymore because they've gone too far. But had
Mhm.
you set proper boundaries so that they would know how far they should go with you, you probably could have some type of relationship with them. So
Mhm.
boundaries No, we the very necessary.
Yep. I was going to say with boundaries, people, when you start changing, well, I don't want to say change, as you mature in life, age wise, there's some things you're going to say no. There's some things you're just not going to do, and those things that people say, well, I didn't think you were like that, or I didn't think you would do that or say that. Well, because I didn't say it when I was 30 doesn't mean now I know better to say it at 53 years old. I'm going to say, no, I don't want to do that. And I always not always, I've always tried to be as truthful as I could be with people without hurting again and maiming them. But now that I'm the age that I am, there's a way and there's a tact that I use to let people know, you've gone too far, or we're not going here, we're not going there. And that's what you have to do. And that's how I maintain my peace. I had family members that I allowed them to say what they wanted to say to me. And then I'm like, I'm the one that's hurt. They're gone on about their business. They say whatever they want to say. And I'm the one that's hurt. I got to recover from it. I'm crying. I'm snotting, but you still moving on. You doing what you want to do. And you never thought to come back and say, I'm sorry, or I apologize that I hurt your feelings. So I had to learn as a older woman, and even in my 40s, I began to mature and it's like, you know what, I like where I am. So I'm not gonna let anybody come in here and bombard me with stuff and act like, it's okay to bombard me. And I'm the one that's got to recover. I'm the one that's got to, and you going on, you moving on, acting like you didn't do anything. So I'm the one crying and snotting. And my husband's petting me up like, it's going to be okay, baby. He hates to see me cry. But I'm like, wait a minute, when does this stop? I got to stop this,
Right.
So I ended up putting a stop to it. I was talking to Pastor Sean about it the other night. I put a stop to it real quick. I don't know if it was the right way to put it, but I put a stop to it because it was hurting me. It wasn't hurting them. They were moving on with life. It was hurting me. So boundaries are definitely important, very important.
As I was doing some research, one area said, how do you pursue peace? And it said, you have to begin to deal with the conflict. And a lot of times there are issues that go on in our life and we have to address those. And sometimes it's easier to just say, oh, I won't deal with it. But if you don't deal with it, it festers in you.
Yes.
And that individual or situation or place, all that stuff roams free. And you are the one that ends up dealing with it on the inside while other people are moving. I used to have a saying that said, I can no longer be bound so that you can be free. That was a part of my healing because I needed to be able to say, I can't do that. And when I got my voice, because I always had one, but I too was always, and Dinesha would tell you, you were good. She used to be like, oh, you are too good to people. Oh, they use you too much. And eventually one day I was like, I think I might need to listen. What I found out is they didn't need as much access to me as I had given. And so you have to take that back. And so it's so important for us to make sure that we know boundaries for other people, for our children, for work. You're not supposed to work all hours of the day and night.
Wow.
You need to know the place of where work fits, where home fits, where our, how much time we give to our children, to even if you're out shopping too much, everything has a place.
Yes.
And it will disrupt us when we don't address the issues that need to be addressed in our lives and we grow up and evolve into the place that we need to evolve to so that we can have that peace that passes our understanding. And I am grateful that God gives us the peace that passes our understanding, because there's nothing like knowing chaos is going on all around you and you feel like you're in a bubble. You see it, but it's affecting you, but you're not acting out in ways because you are just calm. There is nothing like it. I appreciate God for Psalms where he said we get to lay down and go to sleep. And
Yes.
There's nothing like the peace of God that allows us to rest. And I would exchange nothing for that. The other night, Marsh, when we were talking, when we got together and you were saying rest, I believe you and Pastor Tammy both brought up rest. And I thought about a time not too long ago when I was really, really worried about one of my kids. And I mean, I went to God and I was snotting and crying and I called my family. And I mean, I was just like in an uproar. My sister said, "Did you forget that prayer can go?" And I didn't forget, but sometimes as a mom, you just, you're into it. And she said, "Did you forget that prayer can go further than any words you ever speak?"
That's
And it was
right.
like that calmed me. But I was like, no, I didn't forget. But I still wanted somebody to hear what I had to say.
Absolutely.
And
Right.
in the midst of talking to God, he said, he's my kid first before he's
Mm,
yours. And the
Mm,
words he spoke to me next, he says, now go to bed.
right.
That was my thing of rest and let me have it. Quit worrying so much.
yes.
Because if you're worrying, you can't trust me. And you're definitely not in peace about it because you're
That's
trying to
right.
fix it and you can't fix it.
That's
That's
right.
right.
So when we get to the place of knowing that we don't have to have our hands on everything,
My
Yes.
God.
that's a freedom in itself. Some
Mm,
things we only have to do is lift it up to him and watch him work it out for us. And that becomes our safe place, our safe.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
mentioned the word healing a couple times now. So, I was thinking if somebody was to say, how do I get to peace? My answer would be start at healing.
mm-hmm.
Mm,
Start at healing. Because sometimes people just want, they might see us as having come through a lot of things and being mature women now and say, well, I want peace. How do I get peace? You start at healing.
Mm-hmm.
The same place we had to start at healing and being honest with ourselves and
Yes.
and and getting rid of a lot of stop carrying all that stuff around that cardboard box, everywhere we
That's right.
go, all the pains and the aches and the
Mm-hmm.
heartaches and the disillusionments and
yes.
everything. We just kept carrying it around until where we figured out, what, if I want to be better, I gotta let this go.
Let
So
it
you
go.
start healing. And eventually you're gonna end up in a place of peace. And like Marcy said, it's gonna be levels to it. You might end up where the baby's at, but at least it's gonna be better than where you were. And eventually
Mm,
you're
Right.
gonna get to the top floor. I
Yes.
yes.
had I,
Yes.
I had a, I heard somebody say one time, and this goes along with peace and healing. Nobody has to people don't I don't have to you don't have to set yourself on fire for people to stay warm. But I
Mm,
flipped that one day and I said, and nobody has to set themselves on fire for me to stay warm. And
mm,
that's where my real growth came in because it was the place where I started to see you don't have to have so many expectations of other people. That
Mm-hmm.
would be them setting
wow.
themselves on fire for you. It's not
Mm,
always about us. Sometimes we need to turn the camera around and say, how are people experiencing me? you
mm,
know,
That's
because that's
good.
also about peace. Do you
mm-hmm.
walk in the room in peace? Do you walk in the room in chaos? How do
Mm-hmm.
people feel when you walk in the room? So we have
Mm-hmm.
all these expectations for people. We don't want nobody to have us set ourselves on fire, but we come running around with matches, throwing them on
Yes.
other people, for what they're supposed to do for us. But if
Mm-hmm.
you stop having a lot of expectations for people, learn how to be in peace. You won't even need all that stuff from people because you won't be looking for your happy to come from them. You learn that
That's
your peace comes from within. You won't
that's
need all those things from those other people, and then you'll know how to be in peace.
Mm-hmm.
yes. Because if you continue to expect it from others, you'll be disappointed and you'll be living
Yes,
in resentment.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
but there's a scripture that I live by, and it's from Psalm 119, 165. Great is the peace of those that love thy law, and they shall not be offended.
My,
And,
my.
and when we live expecting from others to do something for us, or we're expecting them to respond in a certain way, and they don't, um,
And there
we
goes
can
your
be,
peace.
yes, and we can be offended by that. And I've
Mhm.
learned that when I'm aware of how offended I am, and then how long I hold on to that, I've learned, oh no, I want to keep my peace. So I don't react so much, and I don't hold on to things so long. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's quick. I want to let it
Mhm.
go
You want to
because it
let it go.
doesn't serve me well. I
Yes.
can't live with that. And God never intended for me to live with all of that
Absolutely.
offense
Thanks.
and
Mm-hmm.
resentment,
Offense. Yes. Yes.
and springing up into bitterness. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't function that way well. And God never meant for us to function that way. He meant for us to function with His love, His
Mhm.
peace.
That's right.
And that's why in Luke he talks about us. We sit up and worry. It's a sin to worry. It's sinful to worry because you're saying to God, you can't take care of it. You all this word that you had men write that was inspired by him, you're saying that he can't take care of your one little issue or your two little issues. So he says, why do you worry when the birds don't worry? The lilies don't worry. He brings water to them. The sparrows go out and find food when everybody else could not. So why are you worried? Why do you sit up? Why do you let people invade your life? It will bring you chaos. It is not for you, as Marcy said, for us. He did not create us to worry. He did not create us to be in chaos. He did not create us for us to be in situations that we feel like there's no way out. He came, he sent his son for every one of these things that we are mentioning on tonight. So I say on tonight, if you are dealing with an unpeaceable situation, you need to get and sit still and ask God to bring you through these situations and let him take care of it. If he doesn't do it, then no one else can.
Somebody else? I think we have covered quite a bit on this evening. Before we close, we've talked about unforgiveness, we've talked about maturity, we talked about growth, we've talked about stillness, we've talked about wholeness. I believe that when we get to peace, peace allows us, when we begin to develop wholeness, we get peace.
Mhm.
And
And that's
so,
what shalom is.
yes, his
Mhm.
peace. So I am very excited for peace and to understand, as I said earlier, that peace has a sound to it. And there's nothing like knowing the sound of peace in every situation in which you live in and how we embark upon situations. And it's necessary for us. We talked about stillness and we've had some scriptures. So I think before we've talked about boundaries, I had a couple more. We had talked about boundaries as well. So if you had, as we wrap up on this evening, could you give our listeners, our viewers, one word as they are seeking peace, looking for peace? What would you get? What would your one word be and why? And let's start with Denetra.
I'm shaking my head because I don't have one word. I have one sentence.
Okay,
I,
I'll take it.
okay, thank you. Learn not to take everything so personally.
Hmm,
Mhm.
I like it.
That's going to result in peace.
Okay.
Mhm.
Pastor
Can I
Pam?
talk about
Oh,
it or
yes, you
let it
can.
go?
Okay, talk about it. Yes, you can talk about it.
One of the best things I ever did for myself, and that hasn't been too long ago, a few years ago, that I learned this principle: stop taking everything personally. You won't have to sit so long and pray so hard if you stop taking everything personal. It's that simple. It's not that hard to do. People aren't even really thinking about you like that. People are hurting from people are hurting in a lot of ways. And it's easier to bark at you than it is to do the work,
Mhm.
than it is to admit the pain.
Mhm.
They're not willing to go and seek help. They're not willing to pray. They're not willing to talk to anybody. They certainly not willing to pay for help.
Mhm.
So they're walking around just a bombshell all the time. And they don't even see you sometimes when they're on the freeway or if they're in your face at the grocery store or whatever. But you or your friends or your relative, but you took whatever they said and it turned into a bomb because you ain't at peace with yourself.
Mhm.
So you looking for the bomb. You're looking for the bomb that lights the bomb. So if you just stop taking everything personally, and sometimes people can come off kind of wrong, and you just kind of go, you know what, I didn't know. I'll do better next time. It don't even have to be, well, I didn't know, and then you let me. No, it don't have to be all that.
Mhm.
You can squash a lot of things, and it'll turn into a smile because they'll just be like, Janessa is crazy. She don't never take nothing serious, and I don't, and I don't. Because it's not that serious
Right.
until it is that serious. But when it's not that serious, you can just, sometimes don't always say, don't hurt the weak. Because if I
Mhm.
get in the fight with you verbally, you are going to be hurt. So I take the stance. I'm the one in peace. I'm the one healed. I'm the one that knows God.
Mhm.
So let me take the stand and say, you know
Mhm.
what? I'm not even going to bother with that because they are the weaker vessel. And you know that many, many times
Mhm.
for those people who are listening. So sometimes just learn to walk away. Don't take it personally. Don't let it ruin your day. You're gonna be in nothing but more peace when you don't take everything that comes your way as a personal attack. It's not even about you most of the times.
Thank you. Pastor Tam?
One word, honesty.
Hmm.
Be honest with yourself and
Good
where
one.
you are. Be honest.
Mars?
I like to kind of dovetail on what Dee was saying, because we cannot control what other people do or what other people say, but we are empowered to develop our peace, develop ourselves, protect our peace. We have the power to control our own thoughts and our own emotions. We get to choose. That is the power to
Yep.
choose
Yep.
life, to choose love, to choose to
Yes.
forgive, to choose to let things go,
Yes.
and to choose to just keep that peace, and to know that you have so much peace that it overflows, so
Mm-hmm.
that wherever you are and you walk into that room, you have that confidence of who you are, whose you are, and that peace just flows out of you, and people want to be around you. Wow,
Mhm. Absolutely.
I like being around you. It's just so
Yes.
Mhm.
peaceful, and you don't even really have to say a whole lot.
Right.
You
No.
know, it's just because of that peaceful disposition that you have, where you have grown into it, and you're confident that you don't have to allow people, you don't have to have that validation. Nobody has anything to say or do that will control what you choose to, how you choose to live your life. So that is my word there.
Well, to each of my guests, I say thank you. For those of you who have joined us, we say thank you. You
Yes.
may be saying, I don't know, these ladies may not have been through any of what I've been through, but believe you me, we've had death, we've been through divorce, we've had issues with adult children,
Mhm.
we've lost
Disease.
a child,
Mhm.
disease, we've gained. It is so much that has happened sitting right here on this platform. And so
Mhm.
I am glad that we have grown, that we can share our stories with
Yeah.
someone. Because sometimes we go through things and we don't want to talk about it. But everything that we go through, I often say, sometimes it's not always for us, it's to help somebody else. And so that's what we hope that tonight was, a place of helping you develop. And if you don't have it, that you'll begin to seek hard and pursue it, that you'll want it, because peace will change your life.
Yes, it
It will
will.
Yes.
change your being. It will change your day.
Yeah.
You'll get up excited about being up, excited about going into the workplace. Why? Because you see it differently, other than just another place to go. Because who wants to dread every single day having to go into the office? All of us have worked in that environment. But when our mindset changed, it
Mhm.
changed how we dealt with the people. It even changed the work production that we put out.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely.
a place of peace. If you don't have it, make sure you begin to pursue it. And I pray that we have said something that will help you on this evening. I invite you to make sure that you like, you share, you forward this to someone else. I would love for you to come back and join us again in the space. We meet every third Thursday of every month. We'll meet on the 22nd of September with Mr. Paul J. Wilson Jr. and his book on Purposenomics. We'll be talking about purpose. How do you develop purpose? What is purpose? How do you get a grip on it? And how do you work it out in your own life? We'll be talking about that in the month of September. So have a great evening. And again, thank you to each one of the ladies for joining me.
You're
And
welcome.
have
Thank
a great
you.
Welcome.
evening. Remember to pursue peace. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Good evening.
Night.